The number 30, very frequent in the game between Missouri and Nebraska. Two different ways. One, the Cornhuskers have won 30 consecutive conference openers. Missouri hasn't won in 30 years at Nebraska, so two different streaks there on the line. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz, glad to be with you on the college football previews presented by AT&T. It's the fourth-ranked team in the nation, the Missouri Tigers, going to Lincoln to take on a team that lost its first game last year. But let's take a look at how this game played last year. It wasn't even close. Missouri at home dominated Nebraska 41-6. Chase Daniel threw for over 400 yards, 606 total yards of offense for Missouri. And to help me break this year's version down, we bring in Spencer Tillman of CBS Sports in from Houston. And Spence, when you look at those numbers, when you talk about it, the fact that it was 41-6, is there any reason to believe, when you look at these two teams, that Missouri can't run up the numbers again this year?
Well, based on recent history, as recent as last week, Bo Pelini, of course, Nebraska, they failed their test, their first significant test against Virginia Tech. And so they look vulnerable there against a quarterback that isn't nearly as prolific as the quarterback they're going to face in this contest, a dual threat guy in Chase Daniel. So I think that, yes, the possibility is there for Nebraska to get exposed again. And Bo Pelini's got to be real careful because he's an emotional, fiery guy who kind of probably cost his team a little bit with a personal foul penalty that was too close to one of the drives that really put Vodtech ahead. So got to be concerned about that, and there definitely is, depending on how emotionally his team responds, a chance for a blowout.
Well, you mentioned Chase Daniel, and of course last year in this game had a huge game and made a pitch for the Heisman last season. Missouri hasn't played in 2 weeks, but when they last played 2 weeks ago, he set a Big 12 record with 20 consecutive completions. He also had a career high in passing. Is he your Heisman favorite?
I would say right now he is. Again, I tend to not say favorite right now. I'll have a 1, 2, 3, but I don't say favorite until guys start to get to play, serious competition. And now that we're hitting the conference, you can start to evaluate that with a little bit more efficacy in the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. But, yeah, right now you can't argue with Chase Daniel's numbers. He is outstanding, along with Sam Bradford at Oklahoma. And for that matter, 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the Big 12, they're putting up some gaudy numbers. So he's definitely one of the front runners.
Colt McCoy, Graham Harrell, maybe a couple of the other guys. But, like any good quarterback, you mentioned Sam Bradford. He certainly has a lot of weapons. Chase Daniel has a ton of weapons, and Bo Pelini says you can't just take away one of them. You got to play solid defense all around. How do you stop this Missouri offense with all the guys that Daniel has around him?
Well, you can't stop them. I mean, you know what they're going to do. They're going to spread you out. But I'll tell you what, Missouri can stop themselves. I mean, if you look a little bit and you're trying to find, grasping for straws, whatever you may want to call it, because, again, you can't stop them. But if you're looking for a ray of hope, last week they were not very, crisp offensively. Jerry Macklin dropped a couple of balls. He had a big return. But they did a lot of things, tight ends dropping passes, that was really uncharacteristic against Buffalo. So that kind of gave me a sense that this team played down to the level of a lesser opponent. So at the end of the day, if they're vulnerable, it may not be so much from their skill set, it's their mindset.
But you got to assume their mindset going into Lincoln in a night game is not going to play. You're not going to play down to. This is Nebraska we're talking about, Spence.
I agree with you. I mean, but again, it's not Nebraska of old. But I don't know what this particular statistic is on this, but it's been a long time. I would say almost close to 30 years since Missouri has got to win in Lincoln, Nebraska. So you got that to contend with. These guys have not won against Nebraska in Lincoln. So if there is a psychological disadvantage for Missouri, that would be it.
15 trips, 30 years. You got the number right on the head. Now, there is one other problem with Missouri, and it's their pass defense. 112th in the nation. If this is the shootout, is that something Nebraska can take advantage of?
Well, they do. And I think one of the things, if Joe Gans, the quarterback from Nebraska, can get on track, Missouri's free safety, their starting free safety and their strong safety is dinged up. The free safety won't be playing in this contest. So if they can establish any kind of running game, which is what Nebraska has struggled to do, which sounds a little bit strange for us old-timers out here who remember the Mike Roziers and the Roger Craigs and all those guys that define their rushing attack, that's non-existent the last couple of weeks. And for that matter, all season in terms of a prolific rushing attack. If they can do that, to force an extra man down in the box, to create one-on-one matchups and create that island that free safety has got to operate in, they can get some shots downfield if they can protect. And that I think that's their best chance of success.
You don't have to be old to remember Nebraska running the football. They had Lawrence Phillips just about 10, 12 years ago. Spence, who wins this ball game?
I think that Missouri is going to go in and do something that hadn't been done in 30 years. They're going to get a win in Lincoln, Nebraska. Bo Pelini is going to find out what it's like to not only get a non-conference loss against a big team with a great tradition, but also a rising star in the North of the Big 12 in Missouri, with Gary Pinkel's Missouri Tigers.
Oh, he's been a phenomenal coach the last 10 years for Missouri, and of course got that extension after last season. Spencer Tillman, thank you very much, sir. We'll see you on CBS on Saturday.
All right, Jason, we'll see you, buddy.
And, of course, folks, on CBS, you get the SEC. And on CBSSports.com, you get SEC Live, presented by AT&T. This week, it's #2 Alabama off that huge win at Georgia, hosting undefeated Kentucky. Should be a great game. We'll see if the Wildcats can put up a fight down there in Tuscaloosa. For more on this one, that one, or any other game this weekend, be sure to stay with CBSSports.com. For Spencer Tillman, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care, folks.